She said it like it was nothing. Like it wasn't loaded with all the things I'd been hiding in my chest for months. I like how nervous you get around me. I froze in the doorway, hand halfway to knock, heart deciding to skip its next beat anyway. Her eyes were calm, almost mischievous, but the curve of her lips, subtle, not daring, made my stomach twist into knots. She always had that way of seeing through me. Not the me I let everyone else see. The me that trembled at the edge of wanting someone I probably shouldn't. Her name is Clarissa. She's older. Way older than I ever imagined myself drawn to someone. Mid-40s, confident, poised, with a softness that made you want to linger even when logic screamed to leave. Every gesture she makes, even the tiny ones, like brushing her hair behind her ear or adjusting the cuff of her sleeve, feels like an invitation I'm not sure I'm allowed to accept. And me? I'm 23. Clumsy, impulsive, trying too hard not to sound stupid whenever I talk to her. But she makes it impossible. My words stumble, my hands tremble, my whole body betrays me when she's near. I've tried to hide it, tried to act casual when I grab a coffee or pass her in the hallway. But nothing works. She notices. She always notices. Right now, she's standing in her kitchen, sunlight slipping through the blinds, lighting her hair in a halo I don't deserve to look at. I feel it again, the rush of heat to my face, the sudden awareness of every inch between us. I shouldn't be here. Not yet. But I am. Because she invited me, just slightly, with that tilt of her head and that smile that makes the world shrink down to the two of us. I shift my weight from one foot to the other, pretending to check my phone. The screen is blank, but I swear my pulse is visible in the trembling of my fingers. She tilts her head, watching me, and I can't help but glance up. Her gaze is steady, unflinching, as if she's memorizing the way I falter. "You're fidgety," she says softly, almost teasing, but there's a note under it that makes my stomach flip. Not judgment. Recognition. She sees exactly how much I care, how much I want to say the wrong thing but can't stop myself from speaking anyway. I clear my throat, trying to sound casual. Maybe. Or maybe it's, warm in here. God. Warm? That's what I go with. My brain shuts off. Every sentence I try to craft dies before it reaches my lips. She smiles again. Not the playful, teasing smile from before. Something gentler. Something that says, without speaking, I know you. Even the parts you hide. And it terrifies me because it's exactly what I've wanted someone to do for years. To see me, fully, without flinching, without turning away. There's a pause. A silence that stretches too long, heavy and electric at once. I can feel her eyes on me. Every breath I take is loud in my own ears. The air smells faintly of coffee and vanilla from her candle, and it's enough to make my head spin. And then, there's a knock at the door. Or a ring. Something sharp that shatters the bubble around us. Clarissa's head tilts toward the sound, lips parting just slightly, and for the first time since I walked in, I see uncertainty flicker across her face. I'm frozen, heart hammering, hands tightening at my sides. And I realize, whatever is waiting outside, whatever interruption it is, it doesn't matter. Because right now, in this kitchen, in this impossible, messy, thrilling tension, I don't want to move. Not yet. I never knew how heavy silence could be until Clarissa leaned against the counter, just a foot away, and said nothing. It wasn't awkward, not exactly. It was charged. Like the space between us held more than just air. I keep thinking about why I'm here, why I can't stop thinking about her. Part of it is the obvious. Her laugh, the curve of her neck, the way her eyes seem to find the soft spots I try to hide. But part of it is something deeper, something almost forbidden. She's my teacher's sister. Always has been. The one I was never supposed to notice, never supposed to imagine spending an afternoon with. And now, sitting in her kitchen, I can't pretend that the thought of being near her doesn't make my pulse quicken. Clarissa clears her throat, and the sound pulls me back to the moment. She's lived more life than I can even comprehend, divorced once, I know, though she rarely talks about it, years spent putting others first. There's a kind of quiet grief about her, tucked into the corners of her laugh lines, a softness in her gestures that makes her feel almost untouchable. And I want to touch her, in the safest, most fleeting ways, without overstepping. I, on the other hand, am messy. Just 23, chasing half-formed dreams, still trying to figure out who I am. I've had crushes before, of course, flings that fizzled after a few weeks. But this is different. My chest tightens every time I think about her smile. Every time she brushes a stray strand of hair behind her ear, I feel my hands twitch, wanting to reach out. I haven't told anyone, haven't even dared whisper it to myself fully. The taboo, the danger makes it worse. She's my teacher's sister, someone I've admired from a distance for years. And yet she's here, letting me be close. Not just physically, but emotionally. She knows I'm nervous, probably enjoys it a little, but she's careful, gentle. I catch her looking at me, just for a second longer than usual, and my stomach knots. There's a question in her gaze, something unspoken, and I want to answer, to confess everything I feel. But I don't. I can't. Not yet. Instead, I shift my weight and notice a photograph on her counter. It's her and a younger boy, smiling awkwardly at the camera. Must be her nephew, or maybe her brother's kid. I can't help but smile at the memory that must have sparked it. She follows my gaze and laughs softly, the sound low and familiar. You always liked kids? I ask, voice barely above a whisper. She shrugs, but there's a softness in her eyes. Depends on the kid. Some are memorable. I chuckle, heart hammering. That laugh, her laugh, is dangerous. I feel the space between us shrink imperceptibly as I reach out, almost reflexively, and brush a crumb from her sleeve. My fingers linger longer than they should, grazing hers. Neither of us pulls away. It's small. Tiny. Insignificant to anyone else. But in this kitchen, with the sunlight catching the faint lines on her face, it feels monumental. A touch, a memory of what could be, a question hanging in the air neither of us dares to speak. The knock came again, harder this time. My heart jumped into my throat, and Clarissa's eyes flicked toward the door. Neither of us moved. I'll get it, she murmured, though I could see the hesitation in the way her hand hovered over the doorknob. I wanted to stop her. I wanted to tell her not to, but my voice had abandoned me. My pulse was loud in my ears, my stomach twisting. Whoever it was, friend, neighbor, or my own foolish conscience, didn't need to see this. Didn't need to see me standing here, caught somewhere between awe and panic, staring at a woman I shouldn't want like this. The door opened, and her brother's voice boomed. Clarissa, you left your... He froze. His eyes slid past me. That flicker of recognition, that sharp intake of breath. My stomach lurched. Clarissa stepped in front of me, subtly, as if shielding me, though I was already frozen to the spot. Hey, just grabbing something, she said lightly, but there was a tremor in her tone I didn't miss. I could feel the tension like static electricity. My hands curled at my sides. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to tell him he couldn't see, he couldn't know, that I wasn't supposed to be here, that this, us, wasn't supposed to exist. He lingered for a moment, scanning the room, and then muttered something about needing to leave. The sound of the door shutting behind him made my shoulders sag in relief, though my chest still throbbed painfully. Clarissa leaned against the counter again, closer this time, her gaze lowering to my hands. That was close, she whispered. Her voice had a softness now, a vulnerability I hadn't noticed before. I swallowed, trying to catch my breath. Yeah, it was. My words came out clipped, awkward. My mind was spinning, my limbs restless. I could feel her proximity like heat, like a pull I didn't want to resist but knew I should. For a moment, we just stood there, the air thick and sticky with something unnamed. I wanted to close the distance, wanted to reach for her lips, wanted to taste the forbidden, but the part of me screaming stop wouldn't quiet. She moved slightly, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear, but our eyes didn't leave each other. The tension built until it felt like the world had narrowed to our chest beats, our uneven breaths. Maybe I should go, I said, even though I knew I didn't want to. My voice trembled, betraying everything I was trying to hide. Her eyes softened, almost sad, and there was that little quiver at the corner of her mouth. Do you? She asked, voice barely audible. Before I could answer, her hand brushed mine, lightly, almost accidentally, and I felt a spark shoot through me. My fingers twitched against hers. I didn't pull away. And then she smiled, faint, knowing, teasing, and I realized neither of us wanted to break the spell, even if we should. The tension stretched between us, unbearable and thrilling. My head swam with questions. What are we doing? How far can this go? Can we survive this pull, or is it going to consume us both? And in that kitchen, just a heartbeat away from disaster or revelation, I understood one thing: whatever happens next, nothing will be simple anymore. And I know, in that breathless pause, that nothing will ever feel the same again. I couldn't breathe. Not fully. Not until she left the room, and even then, my chest felt tight, like I was holding a storm inside. I saw him first, her coworker, younger, easygoing, laughing too loud in the hallway as he waved at her through the glass. My stomach sank before I even realized it. Something sharp, possessive, flared in my chest. Jealousy, raw and unfamiliar, crawling through my veins like fire. Clarissa noticed my gaze, her eyes flicking to mine for just a second before she smiled at him. That small smile, the one that used to feel safe, now felt like a blade I couldn't look away from. My hands clenched at my sides, and I had to bite my lip to stop it from trembling. Why did it hit me so hard? He wasn't even a threat. But watching her, seeing her light up for someone else, I felt the absurd, foolish weight of wanting her all to myself. I wanted to step forward, pull her into the space that was mine in my imagination, make her realize that the world could narrow down to just the two of us. She turned back to me, sensing the tension I couldn't hide. "You're quiet," she said softly. I tried to speak, tried to explain the impossible mess inside me, but nothing came out. My voice faltered. My thoughts scattered. I could feel her studying me, patience in her eyes, but also that small, knowing flicker, as if she understood more than I was willing to admit. I don't like seeing you." I stopped. Couldn't finish. The words would betray me. Betray what I'd buried under polite conversation, under nervous laughter, under months of stolen glances. She stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from her. "Seeing me what?" she prompted, just barely above a whisper. My hands twitched. I wanted to reach for her, to grab her hand and never let go, but I froze, caught between desire and restraint. The air felt like it could ignite at any second. "I don't," I said again, voice cracking. I can't." She tilted her head, lips parted slightly, as if inviting me to finish, daring me. My heart slammed against my ribcage. Every rule I told myself to follow, the age gap, the risk, the consequences, collapsed under the weight of how much I wanted her, how much I needed to feel that closeness, even if it was dangerous. Her eyes softened, but there was something sharper beneath it now, awareness, patience, the knowledge that the line we were teetering on could break in a heartbeat. I took a shallow step forward, almost instinctively, and we froze. Inches away. My chest collided with the silent pull between us, every nerve alive, every heartbeat a countdown. And then, the sound of her phone buzzing shattered the moment. She glanced down, expression flickering. I knew instantly, whatever message just came through could change everything. And in that pause, that breathless, unbearable pause, I realized one thing: everything I'd wanted, everything I'd tried to suppress, was about to demand attention. I froze before I even understood what I was seeing. Her phone screen lit up, a message preview flashing across it. "Can't wait to see you later. Miss you." My stomach dropped. My chest tightened. That's not mine. That's not supposed to be mine. Clarissa looked at me, eyes wide, and I realized the moment she saw my expression, panic flickered across her face. It's not what it looks like," she said quickly, voice taut. But the words felt flimsy, almost meaningless against the pulse of betrayal in my veins. I couldn't find my voice. I stumbled over the syllables, each one heavier than the last. My mind raced, spinning scenarios, possibilities, fears I didn't want to confront. Was this someone else? Someone I didn't know? Or worse, something I'd imagined, my jealousy twisting reality into sharp shards? She stepped closer, hand outstretched, but I recoiled almost instinctively. "Wait, don't," I gasped, heart hammering. "I can't." Her gaze softened, desperate, pleading. "It's complicated. I wasn't going to tell you yet." But I couldn't hear her. All I could see was the betrayal, the line in her hand, the message that wasn't meant for me, and yet it screamed everything I was terrified of. I thought you. My words broke, voice trembling with a mix of hurt and fear. I can't. She flinched. I watched it, the way her hand trembled, the way her posture stiffened. She wasn't lying. Not fully. But something had shifted, a barrier I hadn't realized existed, snapping in the quiet of her kitchen. "You don't understand," she whispered. "It's not about him. It's God. I wish I could explain." I shook my head, numb, paralyzed by emotion I couldn't control. Anger, hurt, longing, confusion, they collided in my chest like waves breaking over jagged rocks. And then, the worst part. I saw the truth in her eyes. The tiny flicker of guilt, almost imperceptible, but there. She hadn't lied to hurt me, but she had kept something from me. Something big enough to shatter the fragile world I'd built around us. I turned away, chest heaving, hands gripping the edge of the counter. I need air," I muttered, voice barely audible. I didn't trust myself to speak without unraveling completely. She hesitated, watching me, then whispered, "Don't go. Please." But I did. I stepped outside, the cool air biting against my overheated skin, my mind racing. The world seemed impossibly loud, the distant honk of cars, a dog barking somewhere, the hum of life going on while mine had just paused. And I realized, in that instant, that everything I thought I knew about us, about her, about me, was now in question. Every small certainty I'd held, every stolen glance, every fleeting touch, could be wrong. Yet, even as betrayal gnawed at me, even as my chest ached with confusion, part of me still wanted to believe. Wanted to come back, wanted to hear her explanation, wanted to let her touch me again. I didn't know if I could. I didn't know if I should. I found her sitting on the edge of her couch when I returned, the same sun catching her hair, but now it felt harsher, exposing everything I'd been too afraid to face. She looked up as I stepped in, and the guilt, the tension, the fear, it was all mirrored in her eyes. I read it," I said, voice rough, betraying more than I intended. She swallowed, nodding slowly. "I know," she whispered. "I should have told you sooner. I didn't want to scare you away." I flinched, hearing the honesty in her voice, and realized just how much I'd feared losing her before even trying to hold her close. It's not him," I said quickly, though my chest still ached. "It's complicated. You're complicated." She laughed softly, bitter and sweet at once, that low sound that had always made my chest flip. "You think you're simple?" she teased, but the warmth was gone. She looked down, fingers tracing the seam of her sweater. "We're reckless, you know. Me, you, this." I stepped closer, drawn by something I couldn't fight, and she didn't move away. Her eyes flicked up, meeting mine, vulnerable and daring at once. I wanted to tell her everything, the fear, the longing, the way I'd pictured her at night, imagined conversations we'd never had. But words weren't enough. So I reached for her. Slowly. Hesitantly. My hand brushed hers, then lingered. Her fingers twitched, hesitated, and then intertwined with mine. That one, silent gesture said more than any explanation could. "I don't care about safe," I murmured. I don't care about complicated. I just want this. You. Us. Her eyes widened, a mixture of relief, disbelief, and fear crossing her features. She swallowed, lips parting slightly, as if she wanted to respond, to reach for me, but something in her paused. She pressed her forehead to mine, breath mingling with mine, and whispered, I've wanted that too. More than I should. And just like that, the weight between us shifted. The betrayal, the jealousy, the lies, the fear, they didn't disappear. They would linger, like shadows in corners. But for the first time, I felt something fragile but undeniable: connection. Mutual, messy, human. We stayed there, close enough to feel each other's heartbeat, our hands tightly clasped, breaths shallow. Every nerve was alert, every thought a reminder of risk. And yet it was right. Terribly, impossibly right. I knew the world outside the walls of this apartment wouldn't understand. Friends, family, consequences, they would all judge, question, disapprove. But at that moment, it didn't matter. Not this moment, not this touch, not the trembling in her hand against mine. A siren wailed outside. A car door slammed. Life intruded. And I realized we couldn't stay frozen like this forever. Choices had to be made, paths had to be walked, consequences faced. But we were here. Together. For now. Her lips brushed against my temple, a whisper of promise and warning. And as I closed my eyes, holding her close, I knew this wasn't the end, not of us, not of the storm, not of what we'd risked to be near each other. Because no matter what came next, we had chosen. But I also didn't know how to stop wanting her. Days passed, but it didn't feel like time had moved at all. We didn't speak much, too many words would have undone the fragile understanding we'd built. But every glance, every brush of hands in passing, carried weight. I caught her in the kitchen one morning, sunlight slanting across the countertop, making the dust motes look like gold. She looked up, startled, and then smiled, that same small, knowing smile that had haunted my thoughts for months. It wasn't perfect. Nothing about us had been perfect. But it was ours. I made too much coffee, she said, as if that explained everything, but I just nodded. I didn't need explanation. The air between us carried enough unspoken promise. We moved slowly, deliberately, learning each other's rhythms, tolerances, and scars. She told me stories about her past, moments she hadn't shared with anyone else. I listened, not because I needed to fill silence, but because I wanted to understand the woman she had been before me, the woman she still was beneath all the responsibility, all the quiet restraint. I confessed things too, little things at first, awkward truths about my life, my mistakes, the ways I'd been unsure of myself. And she listened, genuinely, without judgment. Her hands, warm and steady, would occasionally brush mine, grounding me in ways I hadn't known I needed. We were both fragile, both a little broken. But we fit somehow. Like mismatched pieces that finally realized they belonged together. And every time I caught her looking at me, lingering just a second too long, I felt the old thrill of nervousness, the one she had noticed first. It hadn't gone away. It never would. There were moments when the world intruded, my family, her responsibilities, whispers of judgment, but we didn't let them push us apart. We learned to navigate the impossible together, sometimes clumsy, sometimes hesitant, always human. One evening, she leaned against my shoulder on the couch, tired, a book in her lap. I traced patterns on her hand without thinking, and she sighed softly. I never thought I'd let someone like you in, she said, voice quiet, almost shy. I smiled, heart full. Neither did I admitted, though my fingers didn't stop moving. But I'm glad we did. She leaned her forehead against mine, and for a moment the past, the lies, the fear, the almost betrayals, was just shadows. We had survived it. And maybe that was the point. Love, messy and complicated, wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing, every day, to stay. I realized then that the nervousness I felt around her wasn't a weakness. It was alive. It was proof that this was real. That we were real. And maybe that was all that mattered. And as we sat there, quiet and untangled in each other's presence, I couldn't help but wonder. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?